Welcome, everyone, to our ongoing classes on Sheva Mitzvahs B'nei Noach, the 7 universal, God-given Noahide commandments. We are currently studying from the Rambam, Maimonides, who actually codifies all of Jewish law, and towards the very end of his Mishneh Torah, in the 14th book, the book of Judges, Shoftim, in the laws of kings, Hilchos Melachim, the last few chapters, up until the last 2 chapters, which are all about Mashiach, but the last chapters before that, chapter 9 and 10 primarily, are all about Sheva Mitzvahs B'nei Noach. And we are currently in chapter 10, up to Halacha Tes, law or paragraph 9. As a reminder, by way of introduction, a couple of points that I would like to make prior to actually studying it inside. We've mentioned this before. Firstly, there are various different versions in the actual printed Rambam, and much of it is due to censorship from the non-Jewish, it was done by the Christian world, and many of the Jewish rabbinic books have been tampered with, whether it's the Mishnah, the Gemara, meaning the Talmud, in this case, the Rambam. And sometimes these very small nuances of changing a word here or there or using a different term could be even crucial. As we mentioned in previous classes, the term for a human being that is not Jewish. So, you may have heard, or may not, Goy, Nochri, Akum, Ben Noach, etc. Without getting into all of the differences between each one of them, it's extremely important that we hopefully can assume that we have the right term used. As far as we're concerned, what we discussed at relatively great length, there's a difference between a ger toishav, a resident alien, and a regular ben noach. An akum, which is the way it is in many editions, is usually inaccurate. An akum is an acronym which means an idolater. And we are not necessarily talking about an idolater, somebody who's transgressing big time. We're talking about a regular non-Jew. And the term for a regular non-Jew is a ben noach. Every human being on the face of the earth that is not of the Jewish faith, who was not born to a Jewish mother or converted properly by Jewish law, is automatically, so to say, by default, a ben noach, or bas noach, son or daughter of Noah, a Noahide. That's one thing. And then another thing is, as we've mentioned and we learned, and the Rambam told us very clearly, the punishment, the penalty for one who transgresses any one of the 7 Noahide commandments it's a capital offense. However, even in the times, so to say in the good old days, when we were able to keep the Torah law properly and basically fully, meaning the times of the temple, especially the first temple, when all the Jewish people were residents and were actually physically living in the geographic Holy Land of Israel, and we had the court system known as the Sanhedrin, and we were able to keep all the commandments. Even then, not every time a non-Jew that was under our jurisdiction would actually be put to death for transgressing. Because there's a term which is used in Torah, and this applies to a Jew as well as to a ben Noach. Chayav Misa is obligated to die, to be put to death. And oftentimes that term is what we call Misa b'dei Shamayim, death by the heavenly court. Meaning that man does not intervene, and the person needs to know that it is a capital offense, but it's left up to the heavenly court to kill the person. So I wanted to make those points clear. And now the next law that we're going to be learning, number 9, is seemingly a little bit ambiguous or unclear. But again, mind you that the Rambam, Maimonides, is extremely, we can even use the term perfect, as much as that could be for a human being, precise and exact in his language, in his outline, in his organization. Everything in the Rambam is so precise. His choice of words, that's why it's really important, to the best of our ability, to try to figure out what word did he use in any case. And in this case, as far as what word, the topic here is the non-Jew. It's crucial. When the Rambam says something, or when he doesn't say something, when he infers, everything is precise and exact. And he's very clear. Sometimes it may seem to be unclear or ambiguous. Well, that's where we may have a shortcoming. So, let's now approach this halacha, this law, and try to understand it. Goy, she'asak b'Torah. Again, depend if you're looking inside in an original Hebrew copy of the Rambam, depends on which edition you're looking at, and you may have different words. The edition that I'm reading from, it says Goy, which is probably accurate in this case. She'asak b'Torah, that involved himself in Torah study. So a non-Jew that's involved in learning Torah, Chayav Misa, is obligated to be put to death. Now that's not one of the 7, and therefore the Beis Din, the Jewish court, would never kill a non-Jew for Torah study. However, it is a transgression. Now one may ask, which one of the 7 is he actually transgressing? Well, first of all, as we've mentioned on a previous occasion, these 7 are the 7 basic commandments. But there are many things which kind of branch out from these 7. Just for example, charity, education, prayer, which none of those arguably are any of the 7, and yet they are part of the overall picture and exactly where each one fits into it. So similarly over here, that's one thing. And if we do want to get technical, so the Talmud discusses that in a spiritual sense, or maybe even you can say in a homiletic sense, it's a transgression of stealing, which is one of the 7. It's nothing tangible, it's nothing physical, but the Torah was given to the Jewish nation, and only to the Jewish people, to the chosen people. So for anyone outside of the Jewish faith to study the Torah, they are in a sense stealing. That's one explanation. Another explanation, which is a little bit more homiletic, is that it's, in a spiritual sense, it's a transgression of Gilui Arayus, of the prohibition against adultery. And that is based on, so to say, a play in the word in the verse towards the end of the book of Devarim of Deuteronomy, where the Torah states that the Torah was commanded to us by Moses, and it's an inheritance to the Jewish congregation, the congregation of Israel. Now that word inheritance can be read betrothed, which means that the Jewish people are, spiritually speaking, married to the Torah. So the Torah is taken already. The Torah is the Jewish people's. So for an outsider to come and to engage in Torah study, well, Torah is more than just engaged. Torah is married. It's wed. So be that as it may, a non-Jew, and then there's some explanations given. Why is it so terrible and so severe for a non-Jew to study Torah? So what are we doing here? And does that mean that non-Jews should not study anything of Torah? No Tanakh, none of the Bible, no written, no oral, no rabbinic, nothing. Well, the Rambam continues and he says, Lo yasoik, the Ben Noach, the Goy, should not be involved Ella b'sheva mitzvahs shelahem bilvad, only in their 7 commandments alone. So, anything which is at least directly related to the Sheva mitzvahs, as we're doing in these classes right now, starting from the Rambam, these 2 chapters in the Laws of Kings, that I think quite clearly everyone would agree is 100% permissible and even advisable for non-Jews to study. It's necessary. I mean, one can argue and say, no, the Jew should study it, and then the Jew needs to go out and teach it to the non-Jew. But why give them the Torah? It's crucial for the non-Jew to know what the 7 are, because if he or she are supposed to keep the 7 commandments and not transgress, well, then they need to know what they are. And therefore, I personally see nothing wrong with them studying what they are directly, getting it firsthand. And the Rambam says they should not be involved in any Torah study other than their Sheva mitzvahs. So if it is the Sheva mitzvahs, they're involved to be oisek, to be involved and study it. So that's clear. Question becomes, how about if it's related to the 7, or if it leads to the 7? Now the Torah is such that it's all intertwined. And if you are a great enough Torah scholar, you will be able to connect and get from any point to the entire Torah. If you are smart enough and have enough Torah knowledge and know how to study the Torah. So, with that, everything is connected to everything. That would be a bit too far-fetched. A Ben Noach is clearly permitted to study the Sheva mitzvahs b'nei Noach. Now, the question, which I'm not going to give a definite opinion, is can they study it in depth? Can they go to the sources and go through the entire discussion from beginning, let's say from the verses in the actual Bible, in the Chumash, and take it all the way? Arguably they may. And because the word, remember, the Rambam is precise. He's not saying to study or to learn. He's using the word she'osak, ya'asoik, which means to be involved in a business-like manner, to be extremely involved. It's a very intense word. It carries tremendous weight. This word of asek, ayin samech kuf. Now, part of Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach is obviously to believe in one God, in the one and only. To worship and serve the one and only God Almighty. And of course, it's as 6 out of the 7, it's all said in a negative way. They're not allowed to serve any other deity. So, can a non-Jew study about God? Well, once you say that they can, that surely includes a tremendous amount of Torah, and not just the legal parts of the Torah, but you're getting into the inner dimensions of the Torah. So there are parts in Chassidus, which is beyond this class to really explain what that is. It's the core essence of the Torah, and the most basic, fundamental book of Chassidus is known as the Tanya, which was written by the first Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Schneur Zalman of Liadi. He is the author of the Tanya, and some 200 years ago. And in there, the Tanya is divided up into 5 sections. One of the sections, which contains 12 chapters, is called Sha'ar HaYichud VeHa'emuna, the gate of unification and faith or belief. That is beneficial for the non-Jew to study and to get to know God. So there really is, relatively speaking, a great deal of Torah that the non-Jew can study. But as I mentioned in the beginning, it's a little bit ambiguous, it may be a bit unclear. So the starting point, which is black and white, and what a goy is truly and definitely permitted, and as I said, encouraged to study, no problem. That we know. What he's surely not allowed to study, that we know too. And that is Torah that's not Sheva Mitzvahs related. But the question is, what about all those things which are Sheva Mitzvahs related? How related does it have to be? How direct does it need to be? At one point, a while ago, in one of our classes, we studied from Likutei Sichos, volume 27, where the Rebbe Melech HaMoshiach explains the study of Torah of a non-Jew, of a goy. And he makes it very clear, he brings down this Rambam, that a goy is not allowed to study Torah. That's the general rule. So as a generalization, a goy may not study Torah. And if he does, chayav misa, punishable by death. That's one side, so to say, of the coin. The flip side is that a non-Jew who is involved in studying his Torah, the parts of the Torah that he's supposed to, the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach, can actually become so great, and he can even be greater than the Kohen Gadol, than the high priest, who is the holiest Jew. You see, there's an expression that says the crown of Torah is ready and available for anyone to come and take. No one can say it's been taken. There's other crowns. There's the crown of priesthood. and that was taken by anybody who is a male descendant, a Jewish male descendant of Aaron, the brother of Moses. That's it. No matter what you do, you cannot take that crown of kehuna, of priesthood, if you're not a male descendant, a Jewish male descendant of Aaron. And on the other hand, if you are a Jewish male descendant of Aaron, you need to do nothing, and it's yours, and you are a kohen with all of the rights and all of the restrictions. However, the crown of Torah is set aside and is ready l'chol ba'ei ha'olam, for all and every human being, for all the inhabitants of the world, which clearly implies, very strongly implies, non-Jews as well. But we just said that non-Jews are not allowed to learn Torah. Well, it depends which part. So the Rebbe Melech HaMashiach clearly states that these words that the Rambam brings down includes Umay Sa'olam, the nations of the world. So therefore it comes out that B'nai Noach Shayachim L'Keser Torah. They also have an association, a connection to the crown of Torah. And even though a Nochri, a non-Jew, who studied Torah is Chayiv Misa, like we just learned, clarifies the Rebbe Melech HaMashiach, this is only with regards to Torah and mitzvahs of the Jewish people. However, to study their 7 mitzvahs, on the contrary, our sages have stated, quoting from the Talmud, that even a non-Jew who is oisik in Torah is like the high priest. This is in Likutei Sichos, page 246 and 247. It's extremely intense. So there really are two sides to the coin. And it's like almost like a double-edged sword, because it isn't just, well, this is permissible, this is optional. No. On the one hand, it's forbidden. On the other hand, it's a very great thing to do, and it's really important, and you're encouraged to do it. So you just have to know. So as a general rule, which obviously many of these rules have exceptions, but as a rule, if you just want to state the statement, as a rule, a non-Jew is forbidden to study Torah. However, what is connected to their 7 mitzvahs, they should. Next, continues the Rambam. V'chein, likewise, goy sheshavas, a non-Jew that rested, that refrained on purpose from doing labor. Afilu b'yoyim moisachoil, even on a regular mundane day, not on the Sabbath, on a Sunday through Friday. If he made it for himself like a Sabbath, chayiv misa. So there as well, he is obligated to be put to death. Now, what this would clearly imply is that if someone is just simply unemployed or retired or independently wealthy or lazy or a couch potato or whatever, and he doesn't actually do anything, he's not necessarily transgressing this prohibition. It's got to be, first of all, that he's designating an entire day for this purpose, and that he's doing it for the purpose of keeping the Sabbath. Even if it's on the wrong day. It's not the day that God commanded the Jewish people to rest, because that's the day that God, so to say, rested from creation of 6 days. Even if the guy does it on a Tuesday, on a Wednesday. If it depends on his intention. Why is he not working? Why is he not doing any malacha? But if he's just not doing anything, that's not really the transgression. So a goy is not allowed to keep Shabbos. Surely not on the day of Shabbos. The point is, even if it's not on the right day, he still can't. So if, let's say, they decide Sunday is not a work day, and Sunday we don't work. That's a problem. Are they actually chayav misa? Not necessarily, because they're not keeping it like Shabbos is really supposed to be kept. They're not refraining from doing all of the forbidden labors that a Jew can't do on the Sabbath from nightfall on Friday until nightfall on Saturday night. But it's a problem. Ideally, the non-Jew should be working 7 days a week. Ve'ein tzarich loymar, and it goes without saying, we need not say, if he made a festival for himself, that's a problem. That as a special day, and to celebrate it, similar to a Jew celebrating their festival, that's a problem. Klalei shel davar. The general rule as far as this is concerned is as follows. Let's sum it up with a rule. Ein manichin oisam. We do not allow them, we don't let them, meaning the non-Jews, lechadesh das, to innovate a religion or a law. V'lasois mitzvahs la'atzmam, and to do mitzvahs, commandments for themselves, midaitam, on their own accord, on their own opinion or their own free will. Ella, rather, here's their choice. Here's how the non-Jew can keep God's commandments beyond the 7. O yihya ger tzedek. Here are the alternatives. Either he will become a righteous convert, a full-fledged Jew, v'yekabel kol ha-mitzvos, and he will accept all of the commandments, all of the Jewish commandments. That's an option. Oy, or alternatively, yamoid b'seirasoi, he will stand, meaning he will accept and observe and keep his Torah, the non-Jews' Torah, which means the 7 mitzvahs b'nei Noach. V'lo yosif v'lo yigra, and he will not add and he will not subtract. So basically, at this point, what the Rambam is telling us is that every non-Jew has a choice. Either convert and become a Jew, which, as we mentioned in previous class, we are not encouraging in any way. We are not proselytizing. We are not looking for converts, but actually to the contrary. But if the non-Jew wants, he has a choice. Either he converts and becomes a full-fledged Jew and accepts and embraces everything, and he has to keep all the commandments that a regular Jew from birth does, or he should be a religious, if we can use that word, observant, God-fearing Ben Noach that's keeping the 7 Noahide commandments. Don't add and don't subtract. So really, there's no room for any other religions. It's not religion. It's God and his laws. So if the proper term in the English language for that is religion, okay, then there's one religion. And that religion is Godhood. That's it. It's Judaism for the non-Jew. So there's the Jewish religion. The Jewish people received the Torah with a total of 613 commandments. And then there are the 7 for the non-Jews. V'imosak b'Torah. And what happens, practically speaking, when we have the ability to punish? If the non-Jew was involved in Torah study outside of the domain of what he's permitted, outside of the 7 Noahide commandments, oy shavas, or he kept a Sabbath, oy chidesh davar, or he innovated something, makin oisoy, we strike him, the court is to beat him, v'oinchin oisoy, and we punish him. He's not put to death in actuality by the court, but they are to punish him. umoidinoisoi, and he is informed, shehu chayev misalzeh, that in fact he is liable for the death penalty for doing what he's doing. We don't kill him, we just beat him. But it is a capital offense. Avuleinu neherag, but he's not killed, not put to death. So that seems pretty clear, and that's on the one hand. And then the Rambam continues now in the next halacha, 10. Ben noyach sherotza lasois mitzvah mishar mitzvahs hatera. A ben noyach who wanted to fulfill, to keep a mitzvah, a commandment from the rest of the Torah, outside of his 7. Kedei lekabel schar, in order to receive reward. Wants to get rewarded for doing a mitzvah. Now, many Jews commonly mistranslate the word mitzvah as a good deed. Mitzvah is not a good deed. Well, that's not the translation of mitzvah. Mitzvah is a commandment. And a Jew who fulfills a mitzvah gets rewarded. A Jew who transgresses gets punished. So the non-Jew says, I want to do more than these 7. I want to do a mitzvah because I want to get the reward. And that's very understandable, especially since most of the 7, if you take them at their very simple and literal and straightforward legal level, they're all prohibitions. They're all negative commandments. What are you supposed to do? You just sit there and be passive. Don't kill. Good, I kept that mitzvah today. I didn't kill anybody today. Don't steal. Don't commit adultery. Don't commit idolatry. Don't rip off a part of an animal that's still alive. So what happens if he wants to do something positive and he wants to do one of the other mitzvahs in order to get rewarded? So now the Rambam says, right after he told us that he has 2 choices, either become a full-fledged Jew and accept everything, or just stick to these and don't add and don't subtract. But now he's telling us that if the non-Jew wants to do other mitzvah that's not his, in order to get rewarded, ein moin in oisoi, we do not withhold from him. We don't refrain from him, la'asaisa, to do it, ki hilchasa, as is it's according to its proper legal observance. We don't hold him back from doing it. So now there is an allowance for the Jew to do, for the Ben Noach to do some of the Jewish mitzvahs. And the Rambam now continues and says, V'im hevi oila, and if this non-Jew brought an oila offering. Now obviously this is, well, in the times of the Beis HaMikdash. Well, not necessarily, but let's just say that for the moment. If the non-Jew wants to bring an oila, which is a very specific type of a sacrifice, it is a burnt offering. Within the sacrifices, as we learn in the book of Leviticus, there are all sorts. An oila is unique in that it is completely burnt on the altar and goes up to God. No one gets to eat from any part of that. The priest who brought it, they don't eat from it. The person who actually sacrificed it and brought it as a donation doesn't get to eat from it. The animal is slaughtered and then it's offered in its entirety on the altar. That is the only type of a korban, of a sacrifice, that a non-Jew is permitted to bring. Mikablin mimenu. We accept it from him. Meaning to say, can even be brought in the Holy Temple. When we have the temple, a non-Jew is allowed to bring a korban oila. Now there are details and there's laws. It has to be a kosher animal that the Torah prescribes for the Jewish oila, and it can't have a blemish. So there are all sorts of details, but as long as he wants to follow kihil chasa, according to the proper law of what a korban oila entails, he can do that. And we, the Jewish people, the priests, the koyanim, will sacrifice it on the altar. Next, nasan tzedakah. He gave what they call in America, in English, charity. He gave charity, gave food, clothing, money, whatever. Mekablin mimenu. we accept it from him as well. Charity. Non-Jews. And then the Rambam continues and it says, V'yeroyali, and it appears to me, Shenoisnin oisa. What do we do with this charity that we received from him, from the money or whatever he gave, the donation? We give it la'aniya Yisrael, to the Jewish poor. Hoyil since, vehu nizoin mi Yisrael. Since this non-Jew that we're talking about is being sustained and supported by the Jewish people. U'mitzvah leim lachayoisoi, and it's a mitzvah for them to support him. Now, that statement is with regards to a ger toishav. And a ger toishav, as we discussed at length in previous classes, is a very specific, very particular category of a non-Jew. And as the Rambam tells us a number of times throughout his book of the Mishnah Torah, we don't have any technical ger toishav anymore. It has to be when all the Jews are residing in Israel. We haven't had that situation ever since the middle of the First Temple. But the status of a ger toishav is he's allowed to live in the land of Israel amongst the Jewish people, and the Jewish people are obligated to support him. So therefore, the Rambam suddenly is telling us over here, he's not using the term ger toishav in this halacha. He tells us, though, that if a ben noyach gives tzedakah, we should distribute it amongst the Jewish people, the Jewish poor. But then he says, Avol hagoy shenosan tzedakah. But the guy who gave tzedakah, well, what's a guy? A guy is a non-Jew. So the way some want to learn is that even though we didn't call him a ger toishav, but the ben noyach is the term we're using for the non-Jew who has accepted upon himself to keep the 7 mitzvahs b'nei noyach. And had there been the option, like it was some 2,500 years ago, he would formally accept it in front of the Jewish court, and he would be given the status and the title of ger toishav. But now we're talking about a goy, and a goy is a more distant or generic term, which means the non-Jew who does not keep or did not accept to keep the 7 mitzvahs b'nei noyach. So if that guy, Shenosan Tzedakah, gave charity, mekablin mimenu, we accept it from him, v'noisni noisel aniyei goyim, and we give it to the poor of the non-Jews. So some want to learn that really we wouldn't accept charity from a regular non-Jew. However, the reason we do accept it is for peace, for domestic peace, so there shouldn't be any animosity. But we don't want to benefit from it, so therefore we give it amongst the non-Jewish needy, because there are plenty of those as well. The Rambam discussed elsewhere where the prime subject there was the building of the temple. And this would apply nowadays to, let's say, institutions such as a synagogue or a Jewish school, etc. It could be a problem to accept a donation from a non-Jew if it's a very specific item, or especially a holy item, and if it would carry his name on it. Whereas if it's just to pay bills, like to pay the mortgage or the rent or the electric bill or the heating bill, or to buy paper towels, etc., that's not a problem. But otherwise, to be able to say, oh, that special light or that holy ark or books, that could be more of a problem. But What a non-Jew could definitely do and should do without involving the Jewish community is to give charity to non-Jews. A non-Jew should give to a non-Jewish, needy, poor person. That's for sure within the general framework of the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach. That's for sure. We're talking about the non-Jew who wants to give it to the Jewish community. So he comes over to the collector of the charity, the one who's in charge of collecting and distributing the charity, the Jew, and he's giving him money. Now the question, what's he supposed to do with that money? But for a non-Jew, to give to a non-Jew, to a person, not talking about giving it to anything which could be problematic. Talking about there's a poor family that needs money, and they're not Jewish, and you're not Jewish. By all means, give them the charity. That's not the question. Yud Aleph, 11. One of the Noahide commandments is dinim, to set up a judicial system, a court system. Chayovin Beis Din Shel Yisrael, the Jewish court is obligated la'asois shoiftim, to make judges, lo'elu hagerim atoishavim. Now the Rambam is clearly using that expression in the plural for those ger toishavs, for those resident aliens, again, which means non-Jews that formally accepted upon themselves to keep the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach in the times when we can accept the ger toishav. Ladun lohem, the Jewish community, the Jewish court is obligated to appoint for them judges to judge them, al pi mishpatim elu, based on these above-mentioned laws for the 7 mitzvahs. Kedei shelo yishaches ha'olam, so that the world should not become destroyed. So the 7 mitzvahs are that we can have a civilized world according to God's plan. And this world is not for chaos. It was not created without a purpose, and it is not, God forbid, an accident. This world was created with a very specific purpose and intention. And in order for the world to run as a proper world that God wants, he gave a set of laws. So the obligation and the responsibility and the function of the court system, the legal system, is to uphold those commandments. Imro Beis Din. Now, who are these people supposed to be? We said that it's the obligation of the Jewish court to appoint judges. Now the Rambam can tell us, who are the judges? If the Jewish court saw it fit, sheyamidu shoifteihem mehem, that they should appoint their judges from their people, from the non-Jews. Ma'amidin, we appoint them. Then they're non-Jewish judges that were appointed by the Jewish court. V'imro sheyamidu lehem Yisrael, and if they saw fit that the actual judges for the non-Jews should be Jewish judges, Ma'amidin, then you place them. In other words, it can go either way. Whatever they see is the more appropriate thing to do at the time. So the judges that are supposed to be judging the non-Jews that are residing, let's say, in Israel, and they are a ger toishav, either way is fine. Whatever the Jewish court decided. Either they are judges of the non-Jews, or they're Jewish judges. Last halacha. Yud Beis, number 12. Shnei goyim sheba'u lefanecha ladun b'dinei Yisrael. The Rambam is now speaking to a Jewish court. He's speaking to the rabbi, to the Jewish judge. 2 non-Jews that appeared before you, and they would like to be judged b'dinei Yisrael in Jewish law. Neither of them are Jewish. and they both would like to be judged according to Torah law. That's what they both agree. They're having a dispute. They're having a very big fight. It's a big financial case. And they say, we want to be judged according to the Jewish law, God's given law, as if the two of us were Jewish. Danin, they are judged as such. Now, what happens next case? One of these non-Jews wants to be judged according to Jewish law, and the other does not. We do not compel the one who refuses to be judged by Jewish law to follow the Jewish ruling, but rather they are judged according to their laws. We say, no, this is what the law is for Bnei Noach. You're not Jewish, and even though one of them is screaming and yelling, but I want the best, I want the divine law. He's not Jewish, you're not Jewish, it's his right, and therefore we judge them according to their laws. Haya Yisrael v'Goy. Third case. The two litigants, one's Jewish, one's not. So it gets a bit more complicated now. And here is the ruling in that case. If the Jew has merit in their laws, in the non-Jewish laws, then we judge them according to their laws. And we tell him, to the non-Jew, this is your law. This Jew wins the case because your law states that if two people, in other words, if this Jew would not be who he is, but it would be a non-Jew, so then he would have won the case. So just because he's Jewish, he still wins. He doesn't have to lose. And if the Jew has merit in our laws, according to the Jewish law, and only according to the Jewish law. In other words, if you, the non-Jew, would not be who you are, but you would be a Jew, and the two of you would come to our court and we would judge you, he would win by Jewish law. Then we judge this case according to Torah law. And we tell the non-Jew, this is our law, and he's Jewish. So it comes out that with a Jew and a Goy, the only way that the Goy would win the court case is if, on all accounts, if by Jewish law as well as by the non-Jewish law, he is in the right, then he wins. But if either way, even though the other one plays in his favor, but if either one of those two options are in the favor of the Jew, we follow that. And then the Rambam says, but it seems to me, it appears to me, you don't do this to a ger toishav. If it's a Jew and a ger toishav, the above mentioned does not apply. It's only if it's a Jew and a regular goy. Ella rather, if it's a ger toishav, we always follow the non-Jewish law, whether it's for the benefit of the Jew or the ger toishav, and the Jew loses the case. And likewise it appears to me, shenoyagin im geirei toishav b'derech eretz ugemilos chasadim ki Yisrael, that our conduct, the way we treat the ger toishav, is with respect and acts of kindness, just like if he was a Jew. Sharei anu mitzuvin lachayesam, for we, the Jewish people, are obligated, are commanded to support them. Shenemar, for the verse states, La ger asher bisharecha titnena va'achala. That verse is speaking about meat which is non-kosher. It's called nevela. So what are you supposed to do with it? So a Jew can't eat it. So it says, give it to the ger, and he shall eat it. Obviously, it can't be talking about a ger tzedek, a convert, because he's Jewish, like we said, and everything that applies to a Jew from birth applies to a proper convert. So what does the verse here mean when it says la ger? This is one of those verses where the word ger is referring to ger toishav. So we are told, give it to him. It doesn't say sell it to him. You want to sell it, you sell it to the goy. But the ger toishav, give it to him. Now the Rambam addressing a question, but the rabbis, the wise men, the sages have made a statement in the Talmud, Ein koiflin lohem shalom, that one is not allowed to give a double dose of shalom, which is an expression of greeting, but it's it's peaceful greeting, and it's very intense. So you're not allowed to give a double dose. A Jew can't give a double dose to a non-Jew. I mean, you can't say shalom shalom. So that seems like we are limited in being, so to say, extra nice. Loi beger toishav, this does not apply to a ger toishav. Afilu agoyim tzivu chachamim levaker chayleim v'likver meisei mimeisei Yisrael. Even a guy who's not a ger toishav, we were commanded rabbinically to visit their sick, to bury their dead, along with the Jewish dead. In other words, just like we're involved in these acts of kindness towards our fellow Jews, we also have to do the same for the non-Jews, even if it's not a ger toishav. And to support financially their poor, the poor of the non-Jews, together with the Jewish poor, for the reason, for the purpose of peace. Harei Nemar, and the Rambam concludes with quoting a couple of verses. For behold, it is stated, this is a verse quoted, Toiv Hashem lakoil, God is good to all. V'rachamav al kol ma'asav, and his mercy or compassion is on all of his deeds, everything that he created. That includes animals, etc. Surely it includes human beings, people. V'ne'emar, and it is stated in a different verse, D'rocheha darchei noyam, its ways, meaning the ways of the Torah, are ways of pleasantness. V'chol nesivaiseha shalom, and all of its paths are peace. There is much to say about all of this. According to some authorities in Jewish law, nowadays, most non-Jews, depending on which part of the world, but most non-Jews are to be considered like the ger toishav status, even though they're not a ger toishav, as far as the interaction with them, as far as helping them, assisting them, etc., etc. It's not like it used to be. It's not that most of them are to be considered goyim, and the exception is the ger toishav. Now, the table is turned. Most of them should be considered like this higher status. And there are exceptions. Be that as it may, what's very important is that everybody keep the Sheva mitzvahs b'nei Noach, because they are God-given laws, and that is how we're going to make this world a civilized world in the eyes of God, and that's all that counts, because He's the Creator. And He's the one who put us here, and He's the one who has a goal and a purpose. And we are reaching that purpose because we are entering the advent of Mashiach. We're on the threshold of the messianic era. So encouraging everybody to continue learning and studying and teaching and spreading the 7 Noahide commandments and all that's related to that, and make this not only a better world, but ultimately, and very soon, immediately, the perfect world through the coming and the revelation of our righteous Mashiach now. Thank you.